flowers. She's brought them here. Sarah Gunn joins us live in studio. We're going to arrange them.
Yes. A lot of people think this is, you know, it's kind of easy, and then you try and do it at home, and you're like, why doesn't it look like it looks in the magazine? So you've got tips for us about floral arranging at home,
right,
to make it a bit easier.
Absolutely. So the first thing that you want to keep in mind when you get them home is that you want to give them a fresh cut and put them right in water. Even if you're not planning on doing the arrangement that day, that's a really important step. And there's different discussions about the temperature of the water you should use.
Yes.
When I talked to my florist, they had a great analogy, and she suggested that you do room temperature water.
Okay.
So if you think about us going into a bathtub, we don't want our water too hot, we don't like our water too cold. Plants are the same way.
Right.
However, if your blooms are really closed and you want to have that display for an event within a short period of time, using lukewarm water will actually force them to open a little bit faster.
Okay, so a little bit more on the warm side.
Right.
Okay.
So you've cut them, you've got them ready, and then when you're getting set to do your arrangement, if you're going to put it in water, there's a few things to keep in mind. You want to change that water every other day.
Oh, really?
Yes, I know it sounds like a lot, but you really do.
Okay.
You want to use that packet that they give you with your flowers. It has those nutrients in there that the plant was giving to these before they were cut. Right? So it's an important step as well. When you are changing your water, make sure your vase is clean.
Really?
Yeah.
And how are you cleaning your vase? You're doing like detergent and everything?
You can, yeah, a really mild detergent. Just make sure you thoroughly dry it afterwards.
All right.
And then finally make sure that there's no leaves below the water line just to prevent bacteria buildup. So yeah, and it looks a little bit fresher that way too.
They're probably going to last longer then.
They
if
will.
You do all of these things like changing the water, clean vase, and making sure there are no leaves under there.
Exactly. And then there's some flowers that are a little bit more high maintenance.
Yeah.
Hydrangeas, for example.
Yes.
So those you actually want to change the water every day.
What?
I know. If you want them to last longer. If you don't, then don't bother. But
no, it's
if
a
you
good
want to,
tip.
yeah, you do that for
I've never done that.
No, me neither.
No, usually when I change it, there's a bog in there.
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
That's that bacteria buildup that we were talking about. Not the prettiest.
No.
But, you know, so some people like to do them in water. If I'm doing a structured arrangement, I actually prefer to use Oasis.
Okay.
So that's this stuff here, the foamy stuff you get from the florist.
Exactly, or even a craft store if your florist doesn't have it. And then you want to cut that first to make sure it's going to fit inside of your container. We're using a miniature urn here.
Okay.
And before you put it in, you're going to fully saturate it in water. So this guy's been sitting in there for a while. Can you see how much darker the color of that is compared to the other one? That's how you know it's ready. You also know because if you pick up this, it weighs absolutely nothing. I won't make you touch this because it's kind of gets gross.
But it gets heavy, doesn't it?
It's really heavy.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it's filled with water.
It is. So give that a little shake and pop it in.
And that's what's going to make it easier to stick all of your stems in there because it's actually going to it's going to work. It's going to
hold them in place.
It's going to hold them in place.
Exactly. So you want to start with your largest blooms first. I went with ranunculus, waxflower, and some seeded eucalyptus.
Nice.
These are all relatively small, but again, pick the biggest of the three and start with those. And you just want to start placing them in after doing a fresh cut, which I did with a few of them here.
Are you cutting them on the bias, or is that not important?
You can cut them on an angle. It just gives them more exposure to the water, so more to drink from. And then you just start adding them in place. Now, one thing to keep in mind, let's say they're too high. Let's say it's in the wrong spot. If you're taking it out, do not put it back in the same hole.
No?
No, because it's actually creating, I'm actually going to cut this one a little smaller. It's actually creating a really, really tight space for it to drink. And if you put it back in, it's already loosened. So that's not going to work.
Okay.
And so you're just going to cut and
how do you even know how long they should be right now? I mean, this is experience, I suppose, so you know that you're going to want them generally sticking up a little bit higher, the bigger blooms?
I mean, yeah, exactly. You want to have them no more than, say, half of the full height of your vase or your urn or whatever you're working with. Generally, you see those really modern ones now that have them going everywhere, which I think are gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's advanced flower arranging. Yeah, exactly. That's the next step. So you just want to add these in there and keep going. I prefer to have them too long initially and then cut them shorter because you can't increase the length if you start off too short, right?
That's true.
So I'm just going to keep adding these ones in here.
And then I guess you're going to fill them out with all of the other stuff. So here's the other thing to keep in mind. You like using all of one flower sometimes.
I do a lot.
I've noticed that from your Instagram. I stalk her a little bit. But there's also a way, you know, if you really want to fill it out, getting the eucalyptus, that's a great way to do it. You can get actually a less expensive bunch and like fill it out with that greenery.
Right, and the greenery is usually the last step, but you're right, it adds an extra touch, but it also does something like that. See how that's draping over the side, which has a really pretty effect as well?
Yeah.
And one tip for me when I'm doing flower arranging at home, they're not all gonna last as long.
Yeah.
Right? So have a smaller vase ready. And I know I'm not doing it in the order I said, but I want to give you guys the effect here while we're going. Have a smaller vase set aside so that when some of the blooms are starting to fade, throw those out.
Yeah.
And then just take all of the ones that are still looking really fresh and put them in a smaller vase.
Oh, that's nice.
Right? So you're just getting longer use out of them.
Downsize it.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
good because now it's like flowers, fresh flowers are a luxury, but now you're making it so that it makes sense financially too.
Absolutely, that's
Make
important.
them last as long as you possibly can.
For sure.
Now, I know you love Fiore Oakville.
I do.
And that's where she got these beautiful blooms.